All right, ready to dive into something really unique. Today we're looking at a cookbook.
A cookbook.
Yeah, but not just any cookbook. This one's really interesting, especially for, our listeners.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's called How to Cook, and it's specifically designed for programmers.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, the whole idea is that it takes like the principles of coding, like clear, you know,
Structure.
yeah, exactly, structure, precision, and applies it to recipes.
So it's like no more vague instructions, like add a pinch of salt.
Exactly, like finally a cookbook that tells you know exactly what to do step by step.
I can already see some programmers out there rejoicing.
I know, right? And the recipe titles, I gotta tell you, some of them are wild.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Okay, get ready for this. Screaming frog, Chairman Mao's braised pork.
Screaming frog?
Ah,
I need to know more about that one.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But I mean, husband and wife lung slices, they're like, these little culinary mysteries.
So it's not just like basic recipes, it covers a lot.
No, it's got everything. Vegetable dishes, meat dishes, seafood, like a whole culinary crash course.
All in a language that programmers understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this. What makes this cookbook, so different from the ones we're used to? Like, how much is it really like code?
Well, I mean, it's not like you're going to open it up and see lines of JavaScript or anything,
Right.
but the thinking behind it, the way it's organized, that's where the coding principles really come in.
Okay, I see.
You know how in coding, everything has to be very specifically defined for the program to work, right?
Right.
This cookbook takes that same approach, like every ingredient, every measurement, every instruction.
No more guesswork.
Exactly. It's all about getting rid of the guesswork and, guaranteeing that you'll get delicious results.
I like that, cooking with confidence. But let's be real, cooking can be intimidating even for the most, logical minds.
Oh, absolutely.
How does How to Cook kind of address that fear factor for people who are just starting out?
Well, that's where the difficulty rating system comes in. Every recipe's got a rating from 0 to 5 stars.
Oh, like difficulty levels in a video game.
Exactly. So you can kind of like level up your skills, start with the easy stuff and work your way up.
I love that. So it's like, starting with a simple program before you try to build a whole app.
Exactly.
But speaking of complex, can we dive into one of these intriguing recipes? I'm dying to know what makes the screaming frog scream.
Yes, the screaming frog. Okay, so the scream, it's all about the flavor. It's a Sichuan dish, and it's known for being super spicy.
Okay.
It's got chili peppers, Sichuan peppercorns, and they create this like tingling, numbing sensation on your tongue, like a culinary scream.
Wow. Okay. I can almost feel it already.
And then there's Chairman Mao's braised pork. That one's got a whole story behind it.
Oh, fill me in.
So this dish, it's actually a really popular comfort food in China, and it's been around for a long time. It's from Hunan province, and it became, popular during Chairman Mao's rule. That the exact connection is, kind of debated.
Right.
But it's definitely a symbol of, home and tradition in China.
So you get a history lesson and a delicious meal all in one. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Now, what really intrigued me is the Beyond the Code section. It sounds like, it's packed with info.
Yeah, it's basically like the foundational knowledge that you need to be a good cook.
Okay.
It covers everything from like choosing the right ingredients to understanding different cooking techniques.
Like a culinary boot camp.
Yes,
Get
exactly.
you ready to code up some delicious dishes.
Like that.
But does it take away from the creativity of cooking, with all this emphasis on structure?
That's a good question, but no, not really. It's more like a framework, a set of guidelines that you can then build upon.
So you're not just blindly following instructions, you're understanding the principles behind it.
Yeah, and once you have those principles, you can start getting creative and personalized things.
It's like having a good code library that you can then adapt to your own needs.
Exactly. So in a way, this cookbook is like a bridge between programming and cooking,
Right.
making culinary skills, accessible to a whole new group of people.
And maybe even making it more fun.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my mind is officially blown. It's like someone finally figured out the code to make cooking truly accessible for everyone.
I know. It's pretty amazing.
And who knows, maybe this whole approach could be used for other things too, like learning music or art.
Yeah, it would be amazing.
Right, like making learning more fun and engaging for everyone.
I'm all for that.
But for now, let's get back to the food. We've only scratched the surface of how to cook, and I think things are about to get even more interesting.
I'm ready. Let's do it. All right, how about we dig into some more of these recipes, really get a taste of what this cookbook is all about.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm starving for more.
Perfect. Well, remember how we talked about, that modularity thing? how the cookbook uses reusable components just like in coding?
Yeah, like those code libraries you can just plug in.
Exactly. Well, the Screaming Frog recipe is a great example of that.
Okay, I've been waiting to hear more about that one. What's the secret behind the scream?
So picture this. The recipe starts with a base sauce, right?
Yay.
And this sauce, it's like a function in programming. It's got chili bean paste, doubanjiang, soy sauce, all these key ingredients.
Creating that signature Sichuan flavor.
Exactly. And you can use this base sauce in tons of different Sichuan dishes. It's like a reusable code module.
So you make it once and then you can just call it up whenever you need it?
Precisely. And the recipe actually lays it out separately, just like a function, so it's super clear.
That's so smart. It's like a shortcut for flavor.
Exactly. And it makes the whole cooking process so much more efficient.
I'm loving this. Okay, so we've got the base sauce. What's next?
Well, then there's the part about prepping the frog legs. Cleaning them, trimming them, marinating them.
Right, the frog legs, still getting used to that idea.
I know, it's a little adventurous.
But I'm curious to see where this goes.
So this prepping section, it's kind of like a loop in programming. You do the same set of steps for each frog leg.
Making sure everything's consistent.
Exactly. And the recipe, it spells it all out, nice and clear.
No room for error.
Nope. And then once you've prepped the legs, the cooking itself is actually pretty straightforward.
Okay, walk me through it.
You stir fry the frog legs with some aromatics like ginger and garlic.
Okay.
Then you add that base sauce we made earlier.
Ah, the magic ingredient.
Exactly. And finally, you finish it off with a sprinkle of Sichuan peppercorns.
Boom! Screaming frog, I can almost hear it.
It's all about assembling those predefined components, just like building a program.
And the beauty of it is, it's going to turn out amazing every time.
Exactly. Consistent and delicious.
Okay, screaming frog conquered. What about some of these other crazy dish names, like ants climbing a tree?
Oh, that one's a classic. So imagine you have this bed of glass noodles. They're all soft and slippery.
Oh, okay, I can picture that.
And on top, you've got little bits of ground pork, all savory and coated in this delicious sauce.
So the pork is the ants.
Exactly. They're like clinging to the noodles, which are the tree.
Wow, that's so creative. I love how descriptive these names are.
And it's a visually stunning dish, too, like a little culinary artwork.
Okay, what about fish fragrant eggplant? Does it actually have fish in it?
That's a great question. And the answer is no. It's kind of a trick.
A culinary trick.
Yeah. Fish fragrant is a whole flavor profile in Sichuan cuisine.
Okay.
They use ginger, garlic, fermented black beans, sometimes a touch of sugar and vinegar.
To create the illusion of fish.
Precisely. It's all about how those flavors interact.
That's amazing. So it's like a culinary magic trick?
Exactly. And the cookbook breaks it all down so you can recreate that magic in your own kitchen.
All right, I got to ask about this one. Husband and wife lung slices. That sounds kind of intense.
Don't worry, no lungs involved.
Okay, good to know.
It's another Sichuan dish, and the name is more about, telling a story.
So what's the story?
Well, it usually has thinly sliced beef and ox tripe.
Okay, still a little adventurous for me.
And it's all stir-fried with this spicy mix of chili peppers, garlic, and Sichuan peppercorns.
Sounds delicious, but where does the name come in?
So the story goes, this dish was created by a husband and wife who were both like amazing chefs.
Okay.
And the beef and tripe, they represent the couple, different, but working together perfectly.
Wow, that's actually really sweet.
And the flavors, the spicy, savory, numbing, it all represents the balance in their relationship.
I love that. It's like a culinary love story.
It is. It really is.
Okay, but beyond the names, the stories, what else makes this cookbook specifically good for programmers? I mean, we talked about modularity and loops. Are there other coding concepts at play here?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big ones is abstraction.
Abstraction. Okay, break that down for me. What does that even mean in cooking?
So in programming, abstraction is all about, simplifying things, hiding the details that you don't really need to worry about.
So you can focus on the big picture.
Exactly. You don't get bogged down in the nitty-gritty.
So how does that apply to this cookbook?
Well, think about that beyond the code section. It covers so many different skills, but it doesn't overwhelm you.
Right, it keeps it simple.
Yeah, it gives you the key principle, the important techniques, without going into every tiny detail.
So it's like a high-level overview of cooking.
Exactly, and that makes it much less intimidating, especially for beginners.
Right, because starting out can be so overwhelming. There's just so much to learn.
Exactly, and this approach makes it so much more approachable.
This is making me rethink how we learn everything. Like, imagine if every subject was taught this way.
Right. It would make learning so much more accessible.
Okay, but let's be realistic. Are there any downsides to this whole super structured approach to cooking? Like, does it ever make things feel too technical?
That's a really good point, and I think it's important to acknowledge that, yeah, there can be some downsides. Like sometimes the best cooking comes from, just feeling it, being spontaneous.
Right, like those happy accidents in the kitchen?
Exactly. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut, try things out, trust your instincts.
So it's about finding that balance between structure and freedom.
Absolutely. The cookbook gives you the foundation, the knowledge, but then it's up to you to, let loose and get creative.
I love that. Okay, so practical question. How do I actually get my hands on this cookbook? Is it online? Is it a physical book?
So right now it's mainly online. It's hosted on GitHub.
GitHub, so like programmers can actually contribute to it.
Yes, exactly. It's a living, breathing cookbook, constantly being updated.
That's so cool. So it's like a community effort.
Absolutely. People are always adding new recipes, refining old ones. It's really amazing.
But what about, people who prefer a physical book? Is there a print version?
Not at the moment, but you can always download and print the recipes
Oh,
yourself.
true. That's a good workaround.
And who knows, maybe someday there will be a print version. The cookbook is getting super popular.
I hope so. I love a good cookbook.
Me too. But for now, the online version is a great resource, free and easy to access.
Okay, so we've talked about the recipes, the format, but what about the community behind this cookbook? All those programmer cooks, how are they involved?
This is where things get really exciting because having it on GitHub, it creates this amazing collaborative space.
Like a global kitchen.
Exactly. Programmers, food lovers, everyone comes together to share ideas, recipes. It's awesome.
So what are people actually doing? Like adding recipes, changing things up?
It's all that. People share recipes from their cultures, they tweak existing ones, they offer tips. It's a constant evolution.
So like the cookbook is never really finished.
Exactly. And some programmers are even using their skills to, build new features for the cookbook itself.
Oh, wow. Like what kind of features?
Like tools to help you search for recipes, create meal plans, even adjust recipes for dietary needs.
That's incredible. It's like the cookbook is constantly leveling up.
It really is. It's a testament to the power of open source and the community.
I'm blown away. This whole thing is so inspiring. Like it's merging technology and cooking in such a cool way.
I know, it's really breaking down barriers and making cooking more accessible for everyone.
Okay, so after all this talk about food, I'm definitely getting hungry. What about you?
Me too. I think it's time to put all this knowledge to the test, see what we can whip up in our own kitchens.
I'm game, but before we do, let's take a minute to, recap everything we've learned about how to cook.
Yeah, good idea. What are the key takeaways for our listeners?
So we've really gotten into the nitty-gritty of how to cook, the format, the recipes, the whole community aspect.
It's been quite a journey, exploring this intersection of coding and cooking.
It really has, but I think the big question is, like, why should our listeners care? What makes this cookbook, more than just a novelty?
Well, I think it goes beyond just the recipes. It's really about, the power of thinking clearly, logically.
And breaking things down into steps, making it easier to learn.
Exactly. It's about empowering people, giving them the tools to learn anything.
Imagine if we could apply this approach to other things, like learning music.
Oh, yeah. Or design, or writing.
How to compose, how to design, all laid out like this cookbook.
That would be amazing. Learning could be so much more accessible.
And think about the communities that could form around those, like the one for how to cook.
It's exciting to think about.
It really is. But let's get back to the kitchen for a second. For our listeners who are, ready to dive into this cookbook, what's the most important thing to remember?
Don't be afraid to experiment. The cookbook gives you a framework,
Yeah.
but it's up to you to make it your own.
Have fun with it, play around with the flavors, the techniques.
Exactly. Cooking is about creativity, and that includes making mistakes.
Oh, yeah, you learn from those mistakes.
Absolutely. It's all part of the process.
Speaking of learning, we've talked a lot about the structure, but does this cookbook, leave room for improvisation
Oh, definitely. It gives you a solid base, but then it encourages you to go beyond that.
to make the recipes your own?
Exactly. Add your own flair, try different things. That's where the real fun begins.
It's like you're not just following a script, you're creating something new.
Precisely. It's about becoming a more confident, more creative cook.
And I think that's a great note to end on. This cookbook, it's more than just recipes. It's a new way of thinking about cooking, about learning.
It really makes you wonder, could this approach change how we share knowledge in general? Make it more engaging, more accessible?
That's something to think about. And in the meantime, we encourage you to check out How to Cook.
See for yourself how this approach can unlock your culinary creativity.
Happy cooking, everyone!